Howdy, I'm Toby McDonald, and for the last 24 hours I've been building a bunch of stuff with potatoes in space. Specifically, I have a flight simulator, but with spaceships. Now this is the home screen here, and we can go ahead and click on this to select which rocket we want, and you can actually just drag and drop files into a plugins folder next to the jar, and you can add as many as you want. This is just the only one I've made so far. But it's super easy to mod, and this is based off of the US's space shuttles that we had during up until just a couple years ago, I suppose, actually. So this right here is the flight sim, and we can look, and we've got a handful of things here. You'll see we have these graphs, and this just looks to look at all the physics data. That kind of makes it pretty useful even for education. Because you can use this to do experiments, especially in like a year like this year, where we couldn't do hands-on ones because people weren't in school. We can also see our fuel. Over here we have our controls for the engines right on the side here. It's grayed out at the moment, but I'll show you when that goes away. We also have life support, where we have our stuff like oxygen temperature, our power, and then our cargo, and I'll explain to you what the cargo is for in just a second. But what's cool is, just like the rocket, you can actually just drag and drop in files to add new types of payloads. Right now I have one called potatoes because, you know, it's the theme, but like you could have anything you want, and you can have as many as you want, and it just kind of fills in right here on the screen. And you might be wondering, why do we have a payload? Why would we add potatoes? Something that add weight? Well, that's because we have our mission objectives. People don't just go into space for the heck of going into space. They have a mission that they're going on. So we have those too. And these are actually procedurally generated, but it's procedurally generated off of a set of guidelines that it's given in a file that I call a objective file. And once again, you take some of those, you place them in the plugins folder, then it automatically adds them to this list. And it procedurally generates them according to the guidelines that you put in there. So it's really cool, and you don't even have to figure out like differentiating the kinds of mods when you're putting them in these folders. You just go ahead and put them all in the same folder, and this program figures it all out. You can even have all the kinds of mods in one file, and it'll just sort it out for you. Really cool system. Of course, we have our game options. We have a mission summary, which shows us all of our data from this mission, which I think is really cool. And then controls. So we throw some stuff on here, make sure our reactor's turned on. All that good stuff. Maybe some battery. Make sure we have some power storage, because once we hit this button here and we start our countdown to liftoff, we can no longer come back and change the amount of battery storage we have, and we can no longer change the amount of cargo we're carrying. And as soon as that happens, we can start igniting our engines, and if we look at our altitude, you'll see it starting to climb. Now this takes a minute, but what gets really cool is these mission objectives. As you can see, we finished that first one there of reaching 10 meters. If you complete all of them, it sends data to a server running on this laptop here. This laptop then broadcasts a sound file onto this radio using this cable here. And then I guess I should switch to my webcam so you can actually see this. Alright, there we go. And then it's really cool because I've got this other radio over here, and this radio plugs into this cable here. Right? This cable here. Now you see the circuit here? This has the red cable, or the little red wire coming out of this, and that's the wire that has a positive signal on it. Has a signal on it anytime that somebody is transmitting onto this radio, anytime this radio is receiving. And then that goes into this little circuit here I built, and what that does is it builds up charge, depending on what you set the potentiometer to. It builds up charge to a different amount. Yep, and then that feeds into this right here, This right here is a igniter for a model rocket. I only have one of them, and I don't actually have a rocket because it's locked up 3 miles away. Or, sorry, not 3 miles, 3 hours away at work. So, not sure why I left mine there, but I didn't. Now I can't demonstrate this, but also this is a strict airspace, so I won't be allowed to anyway. And the idea behind this whole radio setup here is I don't want to have to put my laptop outside. As we can see, it's kind of raining, and you know, I can't launch a rocket inside, so I have that outside. I have my laptop and that radio inside. I have this stuff outside. Also, I should add this power for this because it does need power. It comes from the wall. That's the circuit in the back here. But yeah, so it's really straightforward. You just turn on the computer, you turn on the radio, and then you turn on this radio and plug it into this circuit. And then as soon as it receives a signal, it triggers this igniter. And I only have one of those igniters, so I really don't want to accident. That's why this radio isn't plugged in. I don't accidentally want to hit the push to talk and destroy it or burn it, because they're one-time use, and again, the rest of mine are 3 hours away. So now, I think that hardware stuff is really cool with like the being able to launch the rocket. And of course, I was going to attach a potato to it because all the objectives are potatoes. And I thought that would be cool, but again, I went out to the grocery store, bought the potato, just to find that my rocket was 3 hours away. So if we jump back over into this screen for screen of the actual app, we can see here we have, what's going on here? We now have all of our boosters starting to run out of fuel, so we just jettisoned those, and that means it's no longer calculating in the weight of the booster itself. I don't know what's going on with the graphics here. OBS is really messing this up, but whatever. I don't know why it's not recording parts of the screen. But, we've jettisoned it, and as the fuel was burning, we were using the weight of that fuel. It was getting removed from the calculations, but as soon as we jettison it, the base weight of the engines, so like the weight that the engines take up without the fuel, that gets removed as well. And we can actually see that here in the gravity forces. It just jumps down here. And if we look at our velocity and acceleration and our altitude, it all looks pretty good. And just like that, we can switch over to our stage 2, which means we're going to start seeing that burning because our stage 1 was jettisoned. As a note, we also have auto jettison and auto ignite. That means as soon as it runs out of fuel, the program will automatically jettison those. And auto ignite means as soon as they're able to be ignited. So, for example, once stage 1 is jettisoned, it'll automatically ignite stage 2. And you're not limited to just like stage 1, stage 2, and then 2 side boosters. You could have, like your stage 1 side booster, stage 2 side booster, stage 4 side booster, even, because I know there are 4-stage side boosters. You could have, 4 sets of those that all have multiple stages and don't depend on each other. This whole system is, you can basically make flowcharts in the software for designing a rocket, showing the progression for the different sets of engines. It just happens that the space shuttles were really simple and only have stage 1, stage 2 for the main engines, which also isn't entirely accurate. I kind of did that just because I wanted to demonstrate this feature. Technically, they only had one really big one, split into that was split into 2 different fuels that they could manually do, but wasn't actually 2 separate stages that got jettisoned between. But I thought this would be cooler, and it's more akin to like the modern rockets that SpaceX are using. As a note, there are also this abort button here. That will, as long as you press it before 3 seconds into the launch, it will it'll stop, and you can go back and adjust the stuff that got locked out. If you press it after 3 seconds left, then you're just game over. There's also a few other ways. If your rocket crashes back into the ground, game over. if your reactor melts down, that means it's reached a temperature over 100 and a radiation level of 400 microsieverts, or if you run out of power, or if your oxygen goes below 6%. Although, if we turn off the scrubber, we see it start dropping. There's something really cool that happens at 14%, as well as if the heater, or if the temperature reaches 0 Celsius, all of those will make you fail. And it'll just give you a message that said your mission failed and closes the game. So when this hits 14, what we'll see is this. I guess you wouldn't be able to see it since how I'm recording this screen. But it starts to jump around the screen to try and just disorient you, and it is unbelievably, like, just trying to track with my eyes. The mental strain is unbelievably similar to actually being oxygen deprived. It's amazing. But it starts to jump around to try and confuse you to simulate the inability to think from the oxygen being depleted in your mind. And then once you hit 6%, you're just mission failed. You're done. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Looking at, it's jumping around. This is really frustrating, actually, because I can't click on. Let's turn that scrubber back on so I can get it to stop jumping. I mean, you can see it in the mouse. I'm keeping this mouse perfectly still, and you can just kind of see it jumping around there. I wish I was recording the whole screen. Okay, there we go. We've now completed our first 3 missions and one more, and if I had this radio plugged in, we would actually see this igniter just burn up, which is why I'm glad it's not. But yeah, that's pretty much my program. Hope you guys enjoyed, and there are GitHub links on the Hackathon page. You can just download this to play with yourself, and if you download it, it will still be connected to this server. So once I'm able to connect, in about 3 weeks, once I'm able to actually hook this up to the rocket, when I'm back down in Goshen, we'll have this actually hooked up, and if you complete all the objectives, it'll actually launch a potato into space, or 200 feet, since that's about as high as those rocket engines can get. So thanks. Yeah.